Good evening and welcome to the April 4th, 2024 meeting of the Community Preservation Committee. It's 6:40 p.m. and we are meeting at the Lakeville Library. We do have a quorum tonight, and for the record, because our secretary is not here, let's just go around the table and just say our names so that she has it for the record.
Nancy Yates, representing Conservation.
Paula Hool for Park Commission.
Amy Knox for Open Space.
John Lucy, a member at large.
Michelle McEachern, Planning Board.
Barbara Standish, member at large.
Kathleen Barrick, member at large.
Oh, and our secretary is here now, so. Yeah, we just started. So we have LakeCAM is recording tonight. Do we have anyone else recording? Hearing none? Okay. The first item on our agenda is the budget report for March. Nancy, you have that for us.
All right, everything's exactly the same, except we took in a little more money, so instead of being at 77.2%, we're at 78.0%. Instead of needing 24,811 to reach our goal, we only need 22,804, so really nothing's changed, except that from last month. But I would like to say that Todd does a budget report for all the committees and boards and everybody in town, usually at least by the 5th or the 6th of the next month, and that I think that we should be in line with everybody else. Unless it's something really important, I don't think we should ask him for it early, because then he has to do ours separate from everyone else's. And I'm thinking that we're not going to need another budget report because the taxes will be due in May. And so we won't get one till the end of May, but we really won't get it until probably almost 10 days into June, because it will be the year-end report, and that takes a little longer. So I just don't think we need to do it like every single month unless it's after a tax month when a bigger amount comes in. So I would like to say not to put on the agenda until our meeting in June.
In June, okay. Now, do we have, are all of these past ones saved somewhere electronically?
And I'm working on putting them in a binder. And
Oh, okay.
if I put them in a binder, then you can take them and scan them and put them online.
Okay, because I still want to work on a spreadsheet. I have like a draft, I just need to put the numbers into it.
Okay, and I've
So-
also come up with the numbers for the sheets that Sue did last time. I'm getting pretty good,
Oh.
but I haven't run them by Todd because.
For the appendix.
For the appendixes?
Yeah, for the
Yeah,
appendix.
okay.
So, I really want to run them by, I have them, and I think they're okay, but I really want to run them by Todd, and he's going to be getting a little crazy probably with town meeting and things coming up. But I will, before our next meeting, I will run it by him, and then we'll have them all. But a lot of it was in the CP1, CP2. Kathleen, I don't know if I ever passed out those sheets. I had copied them, but I never passed them out. But Kathleen had taken care of the CP3, and it's now online, and everything's all set
Yeah, I haven't formally filed it for the year, so,
for this year.
yeah.
But it's on the
It's all
spreadsheet.
in, for the 3 that have been approved.
Right.
So far, yeah.
Yeah.
The CP3 sheet, yeah.
Right.
If you want the password, I can send it to you, just to share the username and password, because you have to set one up.
All right, yeah.
But Kathleen's been doing it, so
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you have the contacts through the coalition and everything, so I think that's fine.
I
It's-
mean, if you want to share it so we can maybe keep it somewhere, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I think it's a good
Electronically.
idea. Absolutely,
Yeah,
I think it's a
so.
good idea to do that, yeah.
Okay, so we want to do the budget quarterly, you're saying, or just this
Yeah.
one?
Yeah, quarterly sounds
Quarterly?
Because
good.
that's when the tax bills out, so maybe.
Okay, so, and when we're talking quarterly, it's still like March, June, September, December.
Right, because it
Okay.
would be, taxes are due in February, and so it'd be like the month after the taxes were due. And since we're putting our meetings on the third Thursday of the month, it will be out, I mean, we'll get it long
Okay.
before that, but we'll have it.
Okay, that sounds good.
And for June, that should be perfect.
Yeah. And for me, I think as long as we have like a spreadsheet that we can add to as soon as it does change, that'll make the difference too, because we'll just have something we can refer to online at any point too.
But like I say, at this point, in between when we're taking in taxes, it changes so little that it's really not.
That makes sense. All right. Okay. Item number 2, review and possible vote on step 2 applications. The first one is the historic town hall door replacement. So this is the project description of remove and replace 2 front entry doors on historic town hall. Doors will match period correctness to best availability. And they are looking for $6,950. This was submitted by Paul Nee, and he would be installing, and there is another funding from another source of $1,750 from the facilities department. The timeline of the project, 3 days. The long-term maintenance will be painting of doors required every few years.
Is the contact person usually someone on the committee, historic commission committee versus a contractor? Or is Paul Lee on the committee?
Because he's facilities, he said this is coming like out of his budget, and he'll be doing the installation. But so he takes care of all the facilities.
In town? Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. He's the town
Which is
employee.
great, instead of having to put everything
Yeah.
out,
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
we have someone in-house who's able to do the work, so, and I know Nancy had spoken to this, Nancy LaFave, and she's not with us tonight, but she did mention how the current doors are failing,
Yeah.
so does anyone have a recommendation for town meeting they'd like to?
Well, should we go over the criteria?
We already did,
Oh, we already did?
but
Oh,
I brought the old one because we already did it, right?
Okay.
No, I think this is a pretty straightforward one. We've already looked at it, so I'll make a motion to approve the step 2.
Okay, so we'll be making a motion to recommend approval.
Right. At
For
town meeting.
this project at town meeting, so we have a motion.
Second.
And a second.
For the amount, can you say the amount of the motion?
should.
Okay, in the amount of $6,950. And this will be coming out of the historic budget.
So if this gets approved, it goes on to the C3 sheet for this year, right? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
That's
so
why I
it'll all
didn't
still be
file.
this
Okay.
year.
All right.
Will that go to the warrant
Yes,
this year?
yes.
And when is that?
So I already emailed the select board and Tracy asking to put a placeholder on the warrant, and I am going to confirm this evening because the warrant closes on the 8th.
Oh, okay, so,
So we're cutting it down to the wire
and they meet on
Monday.
they meet on Monday, okay, just to be clear.
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. The next application is for the cupola repairs to the Lakeville Historic Museum. And this was submitted by the Lakeville Historical Society. The project description is replace rotted and damaged wood, repair and seal flashing between cupola and clapboard base, seal and prime all repaired wood around in cupola, wood areas in cupola flashing, restore, paint, and reinstall 8 shutters, install plexi panels with venting. And they are requesting $20,000, and they have $5,000 from other sources, and that's coming from the Lakeville Historical Society. Their timeline shows completion should be fall of 2024. And it does say that this project requires urgent attention because water is leaking through the cupola into the museum. The project will require a building permit, and for long-term maintenance, the museum cupola will require the same long-term maintenance as any old wooden structure. So once again, I think Ms. LaFave was the one who spoke to this. She's not here tonight, but it does seem pretty straightforward. There's a leak.
We had all the yeses on our general evaluation criteria.
Yes. They have included letters from Brian Reynolds, the chairman, as well as Nathan Darling, the building commissioner and zoning enforcement officer. Does anyone
Yeah,
have a recommendation for this?
this is a unique resource for the town, and I think it's certainly worth funding, so I'll make a motion that we recommend placing this on the warrant for the sum of $20,000 to repair the cupola at the Historical Museum.
Was it 21,100 or 20,000?
20,000 from us.
Down
That's
at the very bottom of the page, the first page.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, okay, I'm looking
I'll
at
second.
the,
That's just a
I
bid.
have a motion and a second.
I second.
Oh, Susan, Sue already did.
Oh, okay, whatever.
So motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So that one will also come out of the historical bucket. The third project is the Clear Pond Park fence, and they have Route 79 in parentheses. This is coming from the Lakeville Park Commission. And the project description is replacing old rusty and broken fence at Clear Pond Park area of Route 79 Rhode Island Road with a galvanized 6-foot chain link new fence. There is a much lengthier description as well. I'm not going to read that whole thing.
Madam Chair, this isn't even the same application
No,
as the
it's
other
not.
ones. This is a totally different application, step 2. Paula, where did you get this step 2 application from?
I had it in my book.
Oh, so you didn't wait until you got the one from Michelle when she emailed it?
I never got one, so I,
Oh, okay, because I sent it to Peter and Melissa, but then Melissa's email came back, but then Peter said he was forwarding it to her.
Yeah, it's missing the
oh,
whole.
okay, I just,
So you got it from,
I got it-
probably like a draft from,
You might have got it from me.
This was
I don't
what, this was
Oh, was
when
it
we first
Yeah,
started
this is
doing
the old
this, because
application.
it's been revised a couple of times.
are we missing something here?
Yeah, this
Oh, on
is,
the,
yeah.
on the back
well,
of,
so I will say that the second page didn't scan, so I did make a
Oh.
copy for everybody
oh,
with the
right
second
here,
page.
that was this right here.
But there aren't, it's missing all the check boxes.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
We have the project description, we have a map.
Deeds, assessment.
So I had a question about the email from Franklin. He recommends a survey to stake out the fence. What exactly is he talking about with that? Who does the survey and how involved is that?
So if you recall, one of the questions from the coalition had to do with the layout of the road. So he said because Route 79 is an old road and he wouldn't have that information, they would probably need to do a survey to determine where that layout of the road is.
Last page.
From like a regular surveying company is, yeah.
Well, plus it's near utilities, so wouldn't that need dig safe?
He explained that we had to be 10 feet in back of that guardrail. So that's what everybody that did the estimate had measured from 10 feet behind.
So now what about, so there's a number of telephone poles that if you look at the poles there's a pole and then there's
There's a
the
couple.
support. So it also goes into that tree lane. Are you taking trees to get
No,
in?
no, Well, if we can go to the map, I can show you.
Yeah, so I think this
all the
picture shows
pictures,
it. Yeah, right
whichever
there.
you choose, okay. Where the end of that guardrail is, it goes into the woods 20 feet, and the purpose of going in 20 feet was to make people think that the fence goes all the way around the park at this time.
But so do you see where the pole, the telephone
Yes,
pole is going into the woods?
right, but when it comes down there, it's going to bend in front of it. We don't want to obstruct any of the poles.
But, so that's another problem, I guess. You can't, because that's a Middleborough, gas and electric.
Yeah, we know.
Pole, you can't put a fence around it.
We're not putting it around there, we're putting
Put it
it,
behind it?
yes.
Okay.
So we already knew that we couldn't do this because they have to be able to access that. And that's why on both ends, when the fence goes in, it's behind. In this one, it's going to be behind the pole. In the front one, it's going to be the first page of the picture.
But do you know if there's any underground utilities there? though?
Well, that
Have
was
you
my
asked that?
point with,
Yeah,
that was my point with
there-
the email
Gas and
from.
electric.
So they have to do dig safe.
Right, they have to call dig safe anyway, but where Franklin was concerned, I mean, if it was as simple as calling dig safe, I'm sure that he wouldn't have raised the question
Right.
about that.
About what?
So there's utilities, there's gas, water.
The offense people have to deal with that. They have to survey that, well, they have to know all that before they put the fence
Right,
up.
they're gonna call dig safe because that's mandated by state law.
Right.
What I was talking about was the question that Franklin from the highway department,
Yeah.
did you see the email from him?
No, I just saw it now, I didn't get it earlier.
Okay.
Um,
So what I'm saying is if it was as simple as calling dig safe, I'm
Yeah.
just wondering why he mentioned it in the email and raised that point.
Because he wants to make sure it's done. And so therefore, when it goes out to bid and when these people come to do the fence, they know they have to do that.
Right, well,
Right.
because it's state law that they have to do that.
Right.
But who's gonna do the survey?
Yeah.
Who's
is this-
paying for that?
Yeah. Have you gotten any?
I did not get any pushback from the people that estimated about doing the survey. They know what they have to do. I don't know what,
Because of the road layout.
right,
Because remember the coalition's advice was to make sure that it's not in the road layout.
right. And they know that, and that's how they measured it. And they also knew that they were not supposed to go too close to the utilities. And they measured it so that the fence would not interfere with any of the poles or any of the utilities. And they're 10 feet behind the guardrail.
I think
Isn't
since he's
this going
saying
in
it though.
the same place the other fences?
It's going in.
So
it
those
is.
fences, though, those fences are literally, it's like the reason I didn't even realize there was a fence there is because it looks like a small tree trunk hammered into the ground
Yeah.
with some wire fencing
Yeah.
that
They're
is much
posts.
more,
Yeah, they're
malleable,
posts, and I
that
couldn't make the
go
picture
along the
any
wood
lighter.
line.
Nancy, did they do an RDA with you?
That is,
Bob and I are
that's a-
gonna go out
I
and
don't
look at it. We haven't got there yet, but I doubt they'll have to do an RDA. But if they do,
That's
real
up to the
simple,
park
there'll be no
commission.
charge and they'll be, it's far enough away
It is.
from the water, yeah.
Okay.
And it's not, putting post holes in the ground, you let people go a lot closer than that, believe me.
Okay.
What are these orange flags?
that's where your markings are for your utilities.
Oh, okay. And are these the old fence posts?
Those are old fence
Those
posts.
are
I
old
took the pictures so that
Yes.
you can't see the fence, but you can
Right.
see the posts.
I was just kind of,
Yeah.
Do they have to clear vegetation to get this?
No, no. The only issue they have is, as they go along, the terrain dips, and what they're gonna have to do is put in, I don't wanna call them rolling cones, cement, things to keep the fence in at the bottom, so it's all the same level. Otherwise, your fence would be going like this. And they,
What was his question? I didn't hear it.
Is it gonna go right where these posts are? Like, is the new fence going
on that end, yes. It'll be behind here, see this area here, it starts. That's one end of it, and the other end is in the beginning here, where there's no utility lines there. And that will go from here and go into the woods. That's why if you look at the pond sketch, I tried to mark off where it will be, showing that each end goes into the woods.
So what was the total funding requested? That line is running less.
20,000?
And you don't have any other funding source, correct?
No, I wish I did.
Okay, so no other funding source.
And what is the means for maintenance and upkeep?
None. The only maintenance is by your town, because they're the ones that have to clean the land. They're the one that cut the brush.
Okay.
The fence itself is galvanized and it's not.
Didn't
So
Franklin
I
say
think- yeah,
that? No, I think Franklin said that you guys are gonna have to maintain.
It says Clear Pond staff to be held responsible.
Well, if he says that, we can still maintain it, but there's nothing to maintain.
Well, brush and everything else that grows up.
Oh, that's what the DPW does all along that road anyways. But
So
if
he
you,
said that they only have like a machine.
yeah,
they
right.
can go
So-
up to-
So,
It won't be, maintaining a fence.
right, but there's nothing to maintain on the fence.
Well, what if a tree comes down on it?
Well, then we call the town because they're the ones that remove the trees. Not the park.
But like, so then the fence
Because it's town
is
property.
damaged though, so then,
If it gets damaged, the park department has to repair it, yeah. I mean, anything can get damaged. I mean, what if it was the cupola or the doors or, everybody has to be responsible in some way.
But once it's in, no one goes around and clears a couple of feet on either side of the fence, so things aren't
No.
growing up through it.
Pardon me?
No one, once it's in, no one's gonna go around and clear a couple of feet on either side of the fence, so nothing grows up through it?
They'll clear it when they put the fence in, but after that, I don't know that it's going to be needing any more maintenance than what's there now.
So are there trees near it that will be taken down when they clear for the fence?
They're just working with exactly what's there. In other words, not clearing property, they're not doing anything more than putting in the fence.
I would think we would take the advice of not we, but the Park Commission would take the advice of the DPW Commission and get a survey.
Exactly, they will always be in contact. We're always in contact with the DPW, so that's not, if there's an issue, they talk to Franklin and do what he says, but it's not that complicated.
that seems like something else that will require funds in addition to this ask,
What will,
a survey.
well, I didn't plan on doing a survey because it wasn't needed at the time. Now, I don't know where this came from, but I just got this message
Well,
here.
Stuart had mentioned it as well.
Right,
Pardon me?
Stuart from the coalition had mentioned that earlier when the step one applications were submitted to him. That was one of his comments. I mean, I spoke to Middleborough, two members on CPC there, and they said to me, even if a project is eligible, the committee does not have to recommend it to go to town meeting if it's not a good use of CPA funds, that it's in our purview to be able to either recommend or not recommend a project. And they said, whatever you do, don't make the mistake that we made and approve every single project that came to our table, because when something of significance came or someone wanted a bigger project, we didn't have the money and had to turn them away. I personally don't think this benefits a lot of residents, and that's what CPA is for, is to benefit residents. I mean, they can't play on it, they can't walk on it, it's a fence. I don't think that this is a good project to go forward with. And that's within our right to deny, to not deny, but not recommend to go to town meeting.
Can we see, does anybody have, I thought I brought it from what the coalition said on this one. Does anybody have that?
Oh, I didn't bring my book.
Thought I brought what they said on all the projects. I guess I did not.
Was it, can we pull it up via email? Was it an email?
Yeah, was it in, it was in, was it in?
Yeah, but I don't have that packet with me.
You still have the email?
It was an email.
I think I deleted it. Oh, no. It is.
Yeah?
Okay, I do have it.
Okay,
Let's see, first step of this application is to determine if the fence is located on protected parcel and if it's located on general municipal land along the road. It is only eligible if the fence will be located in parkland, so that they will need to submit a survey to show the fence is located within the park. If it's on general municipal land, then, or in the road right away, it's not eligible.
It's on parkland.
If it's part of the park, it would appear to be a valid project under rehabilitation of parkland, but as you know, just because a project is eligible does not mean it's a good use of your limited CPA funds.
So the thing is, that's why the survey is needed to determine, because like Franklin said, he doesn't know where the road layout is. So that's why a survey would need to be done to determine that.
And then he says, and when you receive the full application, it would be policy decision by CPC to determine if this project is priority deserving of funding. I mean, I don't think it's priority deserving. I would rather see better use of the money.
I think it's good use of the money because it's preservation of the property and protecting the public. And it's time that they put something up there to protect with all we have going on in this world today with violence. I think it's very necessary, and I think that we
But it's on
need-
the other side of the pond, Paul. It's not even near where the people swim.
But that is the problem. People come in that way, and you're exposed, you're somebody that's using the pond, and you've got people coming in that way. How do we know what they're doing? Is it vandalism?
But it's not an easy way, it's, all trees are down, it's not like a pathway just to get there. I mean, they have to do a lot of work to get over there.
Yeah, they do have to do a lot of walking, and they've done it, because I've caught them in the pathway.
I think from a safety perspective, this is important.
Pardon me?
I think from a safety perspective, the fence is important
That-
because
that's-
landowners have to have a pool around.
Safety is
fence around
one,
their pool.
Right, but it's not
definitely.
connecting to anything, it's just going
I
straight
agree,
across.
I know. I would think
There's
though
no,
that a
there's no fence
survey,
around the other pond though either, at Ted
Right,
Williams.
Ted
yeah.
Williams doesn't have one either.
but that's not a public swimming place that we promote.
People use it though. as-
Yeah, but
as a-
it's still not Clear Pond, we promote people to come swimming there.
what we charge.
Correct, correct.
if it's a park priority is the other thing. The other members from the park department were here for step one. And if the park department has their priorities that don't necessarily align with us, but if the park department has this as one of the things that they want to do in their priority, I mean, I don't have a problem with the fence in general. I would have a preference on some of these quotes from the, how it's going to be installed. I like the, when I looked at this before, I noticed that Southeast Fence, who I know does a really good job in town, because I've seen many other projects, not me personally, but many other projects that they've done. They do good work. And they're the only ones that talk about truck poured concrete and charged for it. The other one's talking about 80-pound bag of cement. I would be opposed to an 80-pound bag of cement being mixed in a wheelbarrow and put in the ground because you don't get the quality that you get when the truck comes in and brings you the cement. It's backed up by like a company, so I did not like the quote from the one that had the 80-pound bag of cement. And I think the other one too didn't specify that it was gonna be truck poured concrete so that you know you're getting good stuff, because I've seen badly poured concrete and it's not gonna
But the
bode well
unfortunate
for the
thing
fence.
is this committee doesn't make a recommendation as to who they go
That's just
with.
I'm just putting in my opinion that that's what I would like to make sure that it's, if we're gonna talk about it as a project, that it's done well. And it is the
Would
time
be
to
low
talk
bidder.
about it.
Would be low bidder, wouldn't it?
Right, it does say in our plan, or, is it the plan or?
I think under
the
state
MOU?
law, it has to be
Yeah,
low
It
bidder.
has to be the lowest bidder, yeah.
I don't know if I
It does,
necessarily
it
agree
does.
with that.
It's either in our plan or, is it the plan or the MOU? One of them says it.
Except the bids.
I would support this, but I think a survey needs to be done
It
since
does.
that's recommended.
So originally, when we had talked about this, about step 2 applications, we had said if there were any problems, that we were having that second meeting to make sure. If
But now
there were
that
any
second meeting-
questions of things to be
So
done.
that second meeting falls outside of when the warrant closes, so then,
Selectmen can put something on the warrant anytime they want, right up till, I don't know the exact date, but I can't see how if we recommended another project after that, that they wouldn't put it on. And then it would be on them.
well, I
So,
guess, do enough. How does this committee feel? Like, Amy, you haven't said too much, do you want?
The only thing I think is, I just have a problem, it just kind of dies into nothing. I would love it if it like connected, which would be a lot of money, I understand that, so like.
That's next year.
Like Sue was saying, it kind of, like, people can still get in. I mean, I've gone by there a couple of times.
Yeah, we know that that can happen, but there's, you have to start somewhere, and you have to start putting a stop to the people sneaking in, and the danger to the public, the danger to the resources with all the trash that's getting thrown over the guardrail. And you really need to protect the public, and you need to protect all our structures in the park that the public uses. And there's I can't tell you the number of vandalisms. And they come in any way they can, but to
They probably
begin
climb
with,
over the fence on the other side, right?
Right.
It's not so tall.
I mean, if it was on the other side, I wouldn't have a problem with this.
Yeah.
If it was replacing a section that you see that looks
we've
bad.
had that replaced, but
I
this
think
is
this is
another problem.
I think another thing that came out at our public hearing that is kind of, hasn't been reflected anywhere yet, is that people spoke up and have said that they would like to see the things that we have fixed before we move on to new things that we can't take care of. So, I think our parks, our cemeteries, looking at some of the other plans which I've done recently in other towns, that's some of the first things that they've done is bring their parks up to snuff. Cemeteries, those are things that have been overlooked in towns for years. And I really think that we've seen that people want to get stuff fixed. And this is not a total fix, but it's a
We have to
beginning.
begin.
That they're probably around Clear Pond for liability, should
I-
probably.
Right, but I mean, are we gonna be funding the whole fence? I mean, are they gonna get any other funding from anywhere else? I mean,
And what if something comes up next year that they want to apply for CPA funds? And, it just ends up being this section?
right.
What if you don't have any other funding sources? And then
We haven't had
my
that plan.
issue with it is that, like John said, there's gonna be stuff growing up through it. It's gonna fall into disrepair, and then there's not gonna be any funds available to fix it.
I think it would be a very long time before it grows up and goes into disrepair.
Who takes care of the rest of it?
If we have a
Long
wet
pond.
summer,
Who takes care of the
The
pond?
town,
Yeah, that's kind of questionable about.
They do.
Just like
that is their job, and it's the DPW that takes care of
Well,
it.
the DPW is telling you they're not gonna take care of it, that's the problem.
Well,
I think it'd be maintenance of the fence. I don't know why they would ever think that they're not gonna do like weed whacking and take care of the property. They
Well-
do that with all town
It's the
properties.
existing fence, they don't do that, right?
well, that's
Sue has
further
some-
deeper in
Sue
the
has some of
woods
the fence.
than this one would be.
Well, I have a problem with the fact that there's no survey that, usually someone's gonna put up a fence,
Right.
there's a line of yellow flags.
Yeah.
You have no idea where this fence is.
I agree about the
It's going
survey
as far
part.
as, the layout of the highway and easements that utility companies might have.
I mean, I would recommend that we just not bring this forward and bring it back next year when you have the survey, you have all this other stuff in line.
I was gonna say too, so Sue has some fence in her backyard.
Yeah.
And she was saying that this was the fence and nobody's taking care of it. It's just
No.
fallen to disrepair. So
I
my
thought that's
issue is
right.
putting up more fence and having it fall into disrepair and nobody being responsible for it. Yeah, I mean, the survey is a big one. We need to have a certain, you should have had the survey done to know, to determine where it's going. And, having, maintenance and upkeep too.
So, like I said before, we had said if there were any problems that came up and we had any other questions we wanted answered, we were supposed to have another meeting on, I believe it
But
was the
we're
18th.
not gonna do that if
No.
it's past the warrant. We're not gonna hold everything up for one project that may or may not.
Well, I'm not
go
saying we
ahead.
hold anything up, we have to put the other projects on. If all the questions get answered and that survey is included in some of these already given quotes, especially southeast fence, that we relook at it. If they'll put it on add it to the warrant, they'll add it to the warrant. If they won't, they won't. I'm just saying, we had already said to people that we were gonna have a second meeting where their questions gonna come up that weren't answered.
And that was before we knew when the warrant closed, but. I don't know, what do you think? Do you think a survey
I'd rather wait.
estimate should be included in this before we determine?
I think you have to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where are they gonna put this fence? You got a quote for 563 feet of fence, but are they gonna, if there's an oak tree, do they go around it? I mean, what are they gonna do?
I mean, because I walked down there, there's a lot of brush and stuff down there.
But I think that the reason why the pictures are there was to show where they had estimated that the fence is going. It's going behind the guardrail. And it's not all over the place.
No, it's kind of
That's-
hard to.
That's where it begins, and then it goes into the
I
woods.
see this picture, I don't know, what is that?
I
would support this
The
if-
park departments wish to have this done. If you choose not to do it, then I have nothing more to say.
I personally would support it if there was a survey done, and if the question about maintenance, who maintains it? could
I know when
answer.
Melissa asked Franklin in the beginning, he never mentioned a survey.
Yeah.
And he said it was park property, it's not a problem. Now I'm getting this, which was sent out on the 26th, and I'm just hearing it.
Well, he did say that he had concerns and that
He had concerns, but he didn't say that we couldn't do it. And if he has concerns, the park department needs to talk to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should, that's why.
And he can say to us, I want a survey,
Right.
but he has never said that,
Well,
not
he
to
has.
us.
So,
So not to the park department, so there's still questions. I just don't see why we can't get some of the questions answered. And if it works, it works. If it still doesn't work, it doesn't work. But it seems like there are some outstanding questions that need to be answered. And like I say, that's what we said. That's why we said we were gonna have another meeting in 2 weeks if there were questions to be answered.
well, we
If
do
they're
have a
not
meeting
answered
scheduled
or it
for
doesn't work,
April 18th. So, Paula, do you want to take this back to the Parks Committee? Do you want me to send an email on behalf of this committee? How would you like to move forward?
I would like you to email Melissa
Okay.
and tell her what you
Okay,
determined.
so that This committee
But,
would like to see
yeah.
a survey included, the cost.
Well, I think that I think the best way to say is the Park Commission needs to talk to Franklin regarding a survey, because Franklin never mentioned a survey.
No, but Stuart did, so that's
Yeah,
two
so that's
people that have
It
mentioned a
doesn't,
survey
doesn't have to
problem.
go back
It's
and
not
forth,
my
it just
boss.
needs to be included.
I
in the
understand that,
estimate.
but he has been on the coalition since inception, and he is,
But he does not see this property, and he is not in
I
Lakeville.
understand that, but he recommended a survey, and now Franklin has, that's two people.
Right, and I think the majority of this committee is in agreement that we would like to see a survey,
Okay, so you can
Estimate
email her and ask her for a
included.
survey.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so.
I'd like to see the fence line staked out.
absolutely.
You know, I don't care if it's ribbons or
Right.
orange paint, something that tells us where it's going to go.
Right.
And this is a learning curve for us too,
Yeah.
and I think one of the issues that obviously is part of this is we have to ask, is the property, how is it going to be maintained? How is
Right.
the
Right. project
going to be maintained in the future? And that's, again, we should have brought that up.
Right, and so it
But
does,
we're on a learning curve.
Right.
We're all new at
it
this.
states right in our agreement too, that if something happens within a certain amount of time, that to the project that's funded by CPA funds, it has to be reimbursed to CPA.
Right.
And if you look at the fence in the front, it's maintained by the DPW. It's the same fence. That's okay.
No, but I mean, if DPW says, yes, you put it in, we'll maintain it, that's good,
But
that
they do
solves
it
the issue.
automatically. I mean, it's never been an issue.
But he's raised the issue, that's the
Oh,
problem.
he raised the issue about a survey.
No.
Not
No,
about-
yeah, the
Maintenance, she's saying they're not
That was
maintaining
number
it.
2.
So that has to be clarified with
Okay.
him.
All right, please
Okay,
ask.
so cost of
Email
survey
Melissa and
included,
ask about maintenance.
the fence
and-
line staked out, and means of ongoing maintenance. Okay. And so I will let her
Did you
know.
contact Franklin, or did he just automatically send this? How did this happen?
Well, so in our first, during our first step 1 meeting,
Oh, I
you
see.
had said that DPW supported, I didn't see a letter from them, so I reached out and said, do you have any information that you'd like to share? And that was what he provided.
Yeah, he had spoken with Melissa. It was a verbal.
So I'll email Melissa, let her know this is what we're looking for, and that we will put it on the April 18th agenda. And I will let the select board know that we're moving forward 2 projects right now, and there is maybe a third. Okay. So, agenda item number 3, review and approve meeting minutes for March 21st, 2024, and March 25th, 2024. Has everyone had a chance to review these minutes? Does anyone have any edits? So for the March 21st, 2024 minutes, does anyone want to make a motion?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And the March 25th, 2024?
So,
Any second?
Second?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we have review draft revisions for community preservation plan. We all have a draft. I think the only person that sent in edits was Sue. Thank you, Sue. And I think this is really just a draft of what you had explained at our last meeting.
right, I just did the whole thing.
I didn't send in edits, but I have comments.
Okay?
I really like, in the how to apply for funding about inviting municipal departments and blah, blah, blah. But then when it comes to.
What page are you on?
18, the very beginning, how to apply for funding.
18.
But when you're describing the application process, it just seems awkward, step 1 application. describing the project and estimated budget. For each fiscal year, the committee shall accept step 1 applications from September 1st to October 15th. That looks like it's really step 1 and 2. You're not just accepting, you don't have a month and a half just for step 1 applications.
Yeah, we can. That's what Northbridge did. They did 6 weeks,
If-
and then it gave the committee time to review them, and then they approved them like 2 months later, and then step 2 was done like after the first of the year.
Yep.
So it gave us more time to review.
So I guess my question was, what about step 2? There's nothing that says
Oh,
anything
so-
about time for step 2.
Well, I mean, you could, the fiscal year, step 1 is September 1st to the 15th, where warrant articles may be prepared for consideration for the Springtown annual meeting. So I
Right,
mean,
but you don't
We could
prepare, you don't prepare a warrant article after step 1.
No, correct. So it could be
Insert.
changed to step 2, if approved, step 2.
I think just insert, so where it says after, from September 1st to October 15th, and then put like a comma,
Yeah.
and say step 2, applications from the following week, or should we say October 15th until November 15th? Or we could even spread it out more and make it November 1st to December 15th.
It's fine,
Yeah.
just as long as there's a time date in there,
Yeah.
and then instead of where warrant articles, like to allow time for warrant articles to be prepared for consideration for spring annual town meeting.
So last year, we brought it to the fall meeting. Is that just because it was the first year?
Yes.
Yeah, and so the most recent time I talked to Stuart, he had said, what are you doing to yourself? Like, this is, you're leaving yourself no time. And he's correct. And I think what we had intended all along is to
Right,
open the applications in the fall,
Yeah.
review them over the
Okay.
winter, and
Yeah.
present them in
Yeah,
spring.
so it's
So
just
this,
really once.
this really just gets us back onto the
Yeah,
right schedule.
That makes sense.
So what is it gonna say again?
Applications from September 1st to October 15th,
Comma,
step 2, applications from November 1st to December 15th, where warrant articles may be prepared for consideration for
I'm sorry,
spring.
November when?
1st,
To,
December 15th, because that still gives us plenty of time before the warrant.
Time for
We
to
won't
allow
be
time
rushing.
for warrant articles to be prepared for consideration for the spring town meeting. Thank you. Okay, next, application review. Applications will be reviewed for compatibility with CPA legislation and community preservation plan, completeness of information presented, and impact the local community. In step 1, step 1 is just whether it's eligible or not? I guess I'm a little confused with that. We decide about the impact of the project to local community in step 2.
Not necessarily. I mean, it doesn't,
We went through that whole list last time on step
Exactly.
1 and the
Yeah,
whole
so
meeting,
I
but
felt
that's
like-
really for step 2.
I don't think it was ever specified for step 2. I personally, I like to get that out the gate so we know, is this conforming to what we're looking for? Because,
But
if right off the bat, if it's not, then why would we want people to go the extra step with step 2?
There was some criteria in that we didn't get until step 2. Didn't that happen? There were some things in there that said, did you have blah, blah, blah. And we didn't have it because it would have been step 2. I think we found that.
I guess I was under the impression that step 1 is it eligible? That's why we have the whole chart, yes and no chart. Is it eligible? Being eligible and us recommending it could be 2 different things. Didn't Stuart just said that?
Right. But I think, for me, it's like a more of a general overview of the eligibility for the step one, and then the step two would be the more specific, delving into it, like we've done with the fence.
I don't know. I just think it needs more work.
Because if we say, oh, it's eligible, it's eligible, it's eligible, we could end up with 20 projects going to step two then, if it's just based off of eligibility. If we had a year where a lot of projects came in, so I think we do need to narrow it down out the gate, or we're gonna have a lot more applicants thinking they're heading for town meeting when they may not be. Or they, putting extra time and energy into it, preparing a step two. I think we do need to do our due diligence every step of the way, This is extra taxation. We heard, a woman come out to the public hearing who was very much against, having this extra taxation and just speaking to people, the whole process campaigning, We know that asking for more tax dollars from Lakeville residents is a big ask, and they want to make sure that their tax dollars are being spent according to how they want it spent. And the big sell, honestly, in Lakeville was to maintain our rural character. And that is the big thing that, for me, when I review these applications, that I'm thinking about. So I think we should put scrutiny to every step, not just the step two.
All right, can we work on the wording then? I don't know,
Sure.
That's step one. So I might as well go on to step two, because step two really bothers me, because we have said, about impact, about the leveraging. Applications will be reviewed for whether CPA funds serve as a catalyst for leveraging, all right? We have said that on page 4, page 5, page 16, and page 18 of the plan. We've said it 4 times about leveraging other money from, other places rather than just CPA. I don't know why we're saying it again.
Well, we're
And
supposed
my
to give
question is, where'd
priority
this
to-
wording come from?
Northbridge.
And that's,
Yeah.
Northbridge.
it's the
Right,
same
I'd
place that we
like
got
to-
the original draft from, right? That was one of the towns we looked to
Yeah,
for our original draft as well.
Northbridge?
yeah.
I looked to look at some other towns, and that was the question I had about a lot of these rewrites here, is where the wording came from, and look at places in other towns. Instead of going over this place by place, I would rather put it to another meeting to look at some other towns. I was on vacation, I didn't have time to do this. I did what I could, especially about the leveraging, because we've already gone over that 4 times.
But though, if people, what I really like about this was the way that the index is done, because if somebody doesn't want to go through and look at everything that's in here and read it, because there's a lot here to read. If they just go and they go to the part that says, okay, how do I apply for the funding, and they don't read the front part of the packet here, all the information would be right there.
Well,
Yeah, they missed the
That's-
leveraging part in other parts.
They wouldn't even know
yeah.
what's in the front part, they're just gonna want to know what pertains to them.
I think they'd be looking at the criteria.
Not necessarily.
I just know how I look at things. There's no way I'm gonna sit and read this packet cover to cover. I'm gonna go in the index and I'm gonna find what I want, and I'm gonna go to that page and read just what I want.
But there's a whole section on, that says leveraging. There's also CPA funding requirements on page 4.
I'm just saying, a valid point for the redundancy is that if they don't catch it in the other sections and they're only going here, at least it would be here.
Right.
All I know is as a lawyer, we repeat things all the time.
Yeah, and I'm usually really in favor of repeating things. It just seems like this wording.
I have a question on the wording too, in the historic structure report.
That's on
Is
the
that
next
something we
page.
require? It's on, yeah, page 19 in the middle. Is that something that we're saying we require for historical,
Who's that?
Page
in
19.
the middle? Historic resource projects.
The committee strongly encourages all historic resource applicant to have historic structure report completed before requesting any CPA funds. I believe this actually goes back to what Stuart had said. Wasn't that one of the things? And so because the town, the historic townhouse is on the historic registry, that is in place. But she said that for the cupola, I think they had to do a couple other things, you know, to get it there. Because they had to, I think, vote as the commission that this is a valuable resource.
So this isn't an additional report that's required?
No. I don't think so.
So I wish I had my last packet, because I remember all of the additional links that Stuart had given. I had printed them out. I had printed out the backup, and I believe it explained that, what it was looking for. Because they want to make sure that you're not replacing something historical with something that's not of the same period.
But structure report doesn't have to do with a period. It has to do with the ability of the structure to hold whatever.
Yeah, that's what I
And
was
if you go
thinking.
back to page 18, it already says, the CPC may request changes to the application or funding request, which to me says that instead of somebody having to spend money on a structure report, to be part of the application, that we would ask, for example, if you wanted to put a slate roof on a historic building over there, you would say, that weighs thousands of pounds, so yes, you would require that, but on a project where you're replacing a door, no, you would not. So that would be, like I say, it's already on here that we can request something like that without making it part of their application unless it's necessary. I just hate to see us making it so hard for people to apply for funding.
It doesn't say, though, that it's mandatory. It says the committee encourages all historical resource applicants to have a structure report.
So then that leaves them in limbo. How do they?
Well, that's why we have step one.
So
I
in
would
step
think.
one, that's where we as a committee would determine whether we're
You
going
would
to
say,
ask
we'd
for
really
something
like,
like
this
that.
project, that's how I approach it. I would say, in this project, I think we really like to see a structure report based on whatever they're proposing.
Yeah.
And it may be something like the doors, that we don't really
Yeah.
need, something like that.
So
And-
it's similar to the survey, if we're requiring an additional reporting, we really should inform the person who's submitting the application too. You
I
know,
mean, I don't think we should mandate a historic structure report on a step one historic application, but it's certainly something we should look at to see if it's required.
I don't know if this is Nancy LaFave. Hello?
That was a cricket.
Yes, it is.
the time here.
Yeah, that's all right. We're talking about, actually, we're talking about the historic structure report right at the moment. Do we have to, like, introduce Nancy LaFave, our member from
So it is 7:39,
Lakeville Historical Commission at,
and Nancy LaFave has
at what time?
joined the meeting.
Oh,
Okay, all right, you're here. I just want to go back and say one other thing, back to my, we jumped up to the other one, but back to my thing. Under how to apply for funding, the very last paragraph says, CPA gives strong preference to, so it's already in there. To projects that can provide meaningful match of the total budget to other sources, blah, blah, blah.
you tell me what page we're on?
We're on 19, I was talking about on page 18, it's
In the
that
plan?
paragraph on, we want, catalyst for leveraging other funding sources is already in the how to apply for funding.
I think there's no issue with the redundancy with that. I don't think we should take it out.
I guess maybe we'd all like the opportunity, I know maybe Kathleen would and I would, to go and do some of our stuff in writing instead of trying to do it here tonight, that we put off
Yeah, absolutely.
this till another meeting.
Yep. Yep. Take your time, review it, and then bring edits to the next meeting. We do have to get this revised and in place.
I also think that we need to put in what, some kind of a paragraph about our public meeting this year. Somewhere, is that like another appendix each
Yeah, I
year when
think
we have a
so.
town meeting, what the recommendations
There was
are?
something. Well, I don't think we need to do it as an appendix, actually. I think that should just be used as a guide to make sure that we're on target to what we heard.
Okay. Sorry, Nancy, we've already gone through a lot of stuff.
I know, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
It's my fault, I screwed up the time because of the time difference. I just,
Yeah, yeah, your project was approved.
I didn't have a project.
Oh, okay.
For the historical.
Historical, sorry.
So the cupola?
And the doors, and the doors.
And the doors,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, so should we,
And you're on page 18 right now that you're talking about?
Yeah, we're talking about giving more time and putting on the next agenda so that we can all do our things in writing instead of going over it sentence by sentence. We can,
does anybody else have any edits that they have? that they want?
I just have one thing to say, that my historical commission hasn't seen this,
okay,
so that I would prefer to wait until the next meeting if that's possible.
Okay.
And I just have one question on page 19, maybe out of order.
okay.
One of the things that was under historic resource projects, that public review, I believe, is, if I'm in the right paragraph, or is it on the previous one? Did you have a public hearing?
The page, Nancy?
Yeah, I think it's the top of the page. Recommend partial funding, all funding, or choose to not recommend any application. Projects serve more than one purpose. Projects that can demonstrate they have developed through a participatory process in which the public has had the opportunity to provide input will be viewed more favorably than those that do not. So are we talking that people who are going to apply for applications could somehow find a way of getting public input? Because it would be different if it was a town organization, a town committee, a commissioner board who was applying, as opposed to a private individual or a nonprofit individual that was applying.
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of that. What was the first part of your question?
The paragraph page 19 in the red,
Yeah.
top of the page where it talks about projects that demonstrate that they have developed through a participatory process in which the public has the opportunity to provide input will be viewed more favorably than those who have not had public input. So if you're going to prejudice applications that do not have input, which is what this basically says, then you've got to find a way or an explanation of how groups would do that. If they're town government, you can call a public meeting, open meeting for input. But if you're a private organization, you would have to figure out how that would operate.
Well, I don't think it sounds like a mandatory ask. It's just saying that if there's a project, like, something that comes to mind would be if the residents were to, petition the town for something to be done. Like, that would be,
You're actually saying the input will be viewed more favorably than those that have not had public input. That's the ending of that sentence.
right.
So
Well-
you're saying right away that unless you have public input, you won't be as favorably reviewed as a petition that has been.
Well, I mean, I think it's just saying that if you have more support, that the committee should consider that more strongly, but, I mean, is this something we should just take out? I mean, I understand what it's saying, that if you're able to demonstrate support for a project,
Yeah, projects that serve more than one purpose of CPA will be viewed more favorably than those that do not. So if it was open space and historic together or
Right,
whatever.
she's not saying
Yeah,
anything
she's
about
not
that.
questioning
She's
that.
only saying about the projects that demonstrate the,
Public.
So then we can just take that out if you don't.
yes, I would agree with taking it out. I had that was one of my comments too.
yeah?
Because you're already showing you're showing a prejudice against a project that doesn't have it. So, I mean, I'm not opposed to having open public input and discussion on anything like that. I'm just concerned about the way the wording shows that we would be prejudiced against a project that didn't have it. And then my other comment is under the Historic Resource Project, which is the second red paragraph underneath that. The Historic Resource Inventory has not been required previous to this insertion. And I think that on the application form, it shows the things that you need, the checkoff list of things you need on page 2, required attachments as applicable. Then this would have to be, if we agreed to this, we would have to add this in. The structural.
Right, we've been having a discussion about that when you just called in.
Okay, I just didn't know where I was in terms of the meeting. Sorry.
I think we were just saying that, once again, this was just something that the committee strongly encourages. So it's not like a, mandatory item.
Okay.
But do you
it
think,
don't- Oh, sorry.
do you think that's something that, because we were just talking, somebody mentioned the slate roof and whether a structure could support the weight of it. So do you think that's something that we should potentially leave in if it's to be considered when it may apply, as opposed to taking it out and then not having it there if we want it?
Yeah, and I personally think that it should be the Historic Resource Inventory, which is the thing that the Historical Commission applies to the Massachusetts Historical and Archaeological Assessment inventory that we do on buildings. I think that should be included, but it hasn't been listed before, so I think that's why it wasn't included, except I believe when they applied for the roof grant that it was put in, but the museum piece didn't have that. I think that's perfectly a legitimate request. My only problem, and I have no real major problem with historic structure report, except for the expense of having that done. You might have to have people applying to get that paid for before they applied, if that's the way this wording sounds.
Yeah.
Well, my
That
comment,
seems
Nancy,
optional.
had been that it kind of leaves people in limbo because it says strongly encourages, so that we should leave it. So there's another part on how to apply for funding that says CPC may request changes to the application or funding request, which we just did with Paula and the fence, is that when we look at phase 1 application, like the example was the slate roof, that we say, we think you're gonna need this for that project. Like your doors probably wouldn't need something like that because it doesn't affect the structure. But something else, like you said, the roof does, so that we can do it on a case-by-case basis. I just wonder if this kind of confuses people whether they need it or not.
Yeah, I know. I think that you have to say either you need it or you don't include it. I mean, it shouldn't be an optional type of thing.
Oh, I think it should be.
Do you know what I'm saying? That we need to treat every application pretty much the same. As a result, you can't leave it to a whim or make it arbitrary. The thing is that what's really important is that we protect the people's money that we're spending, and the money that comes into us. We have to show that we are being due diligent and we're protecting the use of that money, and we're not being frivolous about it. So I have no problem with that, and if that's what we need to do, fine, but we also have to understand how that's going to affect applications.
Right. So I guess we were just making the decision, we're gonna put this on to the next meeting and people can make their comments in writing. I was saying I was on vacation and I didn't really have time to write anything up besides just writing all over these pages. So I think that's what we're gonna do. Is that what we're gonna do?
All right, so let's continue this. Oh, did we lose her?
Oh,
Nancy LaFave exited at 7:50. So we'll,
she's in Kansas City, so I think the time.
yeah, we'll just put it back on for April 18th.
Okay.
So come with all your edits, and hopefully we can make some progress at that point. All right, the last item on our agenda is our next meeting date is April 18th.
Oh,
And we will be meeting at the COA at 6:30.
okay,
Okay, I'm sorry, they turned off the, I'm in a car.
okay. We're going to, put this up to the next meeting.
Okay.
All right, so I think
So
Now,
that
we
we're
was,
back
can
at
get
7:51.
historical report, and we can, I'd like to just check another, a few other plans to see what kind of listing of materials that you'd actually need. We might have to have something on the side of that page 2 of the final application that lists for like, for a historic project, you have to have, you may, or you have to have the following materials, and
right,
then something for open
right.
space. And
Yep,
right,
add specifics.
yes,
that's more like a housekeeping thing, but it would make more sense and nobody would show up with an application that's incomplete because they didn't realize it or they hadn't read the whole plan or whatever the due diligence they should have had,
yeah, the have-to-haves and the maybe you have to have.
Also highly recommended is another way of saying it.
Okay, so I think we're done.
Yep, next meeting, April 18th, COA, 6:30. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
So can you tell us what the agenda will be, the things that we haven't finished talking about, right?
Right, the draft revisions for the plan.
Yeah, thanks, Roger.
As well as
And I
the
just
fence.
have one question based on the beginning of the plan, that from now on, we are only going to be accepting, the intent is only to accept applications for the fall meeting?
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
in the fall for the spring meeting,
Yes,
and instead of having 2 rounds?
yes.
Okay,
Actually, we changed it September 1st to October 15th for step 1, and step 2 would be November 1st to December 15th.
and then it would be, if approved at step 2, it would go on to be part of the spring town meeting in June?
Yes,
Yes.
once a year, because we'd be killing ourselves otherwise to try to do it twice a year, correct?
Well, and that would give people enough time in advance to maybe get their stuff all together too, if they anticipate filing again.
Yes.
For the project for a different time period.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
All right.